is on, the time is right. It's time for you to play your game. 'Cause people are coming, everyone's trying to be the best that they can when they're going for gold.
Right, we can't swear, okay? No swearing. Right. Welcome everyone to our first Rowing for Gold vodcast. We have a couple of celebrities on board and we've been asking you questions.
They refused, so you got us.
Yeah, I know. They're coming along in a minute. So we put it out there, a few questions with great response, and we've had a look at them. And between Joe and Pete, they're gonna answer your questions as best they can. So, question in: coastal clubs are quite new to sculling and rigging. What advice can you give them in regards to junior quads?
Well, the boats are pretty heavy, so you probably need a few more than 4 to carry it down.
Yeah.
Get a trolley.
We get a trolley. There you go. Yeah, but in terms of rigging, I mean, the boats are so heavy when you're picking it up at the front end that you probably need to just rig a little lighter. I mean, the rigging charts that we have at the moment are probably for like the higher end guys who are at the World Championships, not 65 kilo rowers. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, I'd agree. All rigging charts out there seem to be your internationals, so I think everything needs to be kind of tailored down or widened out or made a bit lighter. So I suppose fundamentally you've got juniors who are rowing in a boat 140 kilo kind of quad, and you need to start giving them I mean, what kind of span are we looking at internationally? We're looking at, you know, we could look
variety, isn't there? Still, it's so young.
Yeah. So the best thing I'd say is if you've got an international rowing chart, go for the lightweights or go for the ladies chart. You know, that gives them a kind of, they're lighter people, so that the rigging then will be suitable for juniors to use. It'll be the lightest setting, so to speak, you know.
Yeah, and they won't have the same kind of strength around the middle that I do.
The middle of what? Stroke, body, or boat?
All three.
It's a long ferry. There's a lot of
yeah, there was a long ferry. Yeah. No, just they don't have the core or the strength, do they, to take that catch and they of 140 kilos.
Yeah, if you've got a boat rigged at a span of what, 162, right?
Yeah.
So what you could do with for example, a quick one for a club that has juniors, seniors, and everyone rowing in it is to have clams, so that the inboard is a little longer. You know, and you can just, if you don't know what a clam is, for example, a clam is a clip-on load amplification module. It's a concept 2 thing.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what clam means. But it's look a C, right? But they're also called spacers. Croker call them spacers, and I don't think Swift do clams, do we?
No.
We will after this. But what I find is if you put that in, it gives you an extra centimeter of leverage. So something like that allows them to change between different crews, right?
Yeah, it's just a quick snap-on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than just changing very quickly.
Yeah. But that's
also juniors are probably a bit thinner themselves, so an extra centimeter inboard is all right.
Yeah. But that's only a centimeter. But I mean, we could really go into it here. But I mean, it's load light, isn't it? Isn't it rig light?
I would say so. Yeah, at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, so rig the boat lighter maybe as time goes on, and you can tighten it up a bit, you know. Kind of leads on to another question. Some sources suggest the shorter oar for coastal rowing, as the load is heavier than the river boat. Is this the case, and is there a limit before washing out becomes a problem?
I think if you go too short, of course, geometrically it will wash out. So if you stay in the range, let's say pick your one, Pete, 279.
Yeah.
I mean, raise your hand a centimeter and that will depress it by 3 centimeters, right? So it's 3-to-1 kind of ratio or 2-to-1 ratio, depending on your viewpoint. So I wouldn't worry about washing out and I wouldn't worry about pitch. They're two different things. And then length of oar, definitely. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, the consensus I found from chatting around when you first asked us to get involved was that the shorter oar is probably the most likely, so we can move the span in a little bit. So you can't just keep pushing the span out and out, I don't think, in my opinion. So you could, the normal oar at the moment is 283 to what, 289 maybe, or 28. You know better, Jay.
284, 289, or yeah, between 283 and 290 is your thing.
Yeah, so it's the question whether we move the inboard in, the span in a little bit, and then make the blade a little bit shorter. This week we've got this current relief stuff going on, and the guys rowing on 244 length blades, so we can get through the tunnels.
No way.
Yeah. Seems to be fine.
That's we had a guy, Noel Casey, down in Kenmare. Noel used to coach for Vesta, right? And he came up to me there a couple of years ago, and he asked me to shorten his oars for one of his athletes, and we took 15 centimeters off the oar. And when I was chatting to him, he said in the 60s, his daughter, or 70s, his daughter, who used to row in Vesta, they moved their pins in and everything by about 15 centimeters. So she was at 150. Everyone at the moment is at, she was at 150, but her whole boat was made smaller to suit her. And then we moved the oars in and we changed everything to suit, like 150 means a span of 75 plus 8. So it was an 83. So we were looking at 82 centimeter inboard for her. And she uses that in her single now, the current athlete, I think it's Georgia. So you can definitely change around, as you say yourself, but you can definitely change a lot of the rigging, you know, to suit the athlete, and it doesn't have to be formulaic, you know. But he proposed this. She's working away and seems to be fine for her.
All the figures really are just arbitrary, aren't they? We've decided, how did we end up with 159 span?
Production factories that can't be making it. Yeah. There is a general kind of like everyone's an average, like your binomial distribution will say that you need to have it in around 160. I use 160 because it's handy to divide in two. You know, if you have 159.5, divide that in two. You're like,
So Joe, you mentioned earlier there, you take your span, you divide it by 2 plus 8. Did you say does that then get you your inboard?
6 to 8. Yeah, it's your overlap.
Yeah,
so 6 centimeters to 8. If you measure your look what I have here. If you measure your knuckles, like, you know, you're talking, my knuckles are 10 centimeters wide. Peter's are probably, I need a longer.
You got very thin hands there, Jay.
But it's all the knitting, you know. It's kind of, but yeah, I always use the one divide your span by 2 and add 6 to 8 centimeters, and it's, you know, I've never gone to the 87.5 because I don't think, you know, you look at Paul O'Donovan and Finton, their point of contact on their grip is here, and the grip, if you excuse me, no, they're holding it like that with like 2-3 centimeters protruding, and are you telling me half a centimeter is going to make a difference to those that? So it is a little arbitrary for some people, and then others. Like I had a guy years ago ask me, he changed the pitch on his gate because there was a southwesterly wind coming in, and he moved it off a degree because he felt it would cover a little longer. Now this particular guy, I'd believe him, but anyone else I'd go, nah. You know, I think he more here wanted it, but you know, some people want the accuracy. Others, I'd say they'd roll with them in the round gates. You know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, just alter your forearm a little bit.
Yeah.
So Joe, you knew of someone who changed his pitch because there was a southwesterly, I think you said, wind. So there's a question here, which kind of leads nicely into it. Would you rig the boat differently according to sea conditions? You know, it's a valid question, I guess.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, if I needed to shorten up, I would, but I wouldn't go into pitch or anything like that.
Yeah.
And one question that I saw there: coastal clubs are new to sculling. Keep it simple. you know, everyone has the same span, everyone has the same oar, everyone has the same this. Don't mess around. Even your work through and all that, just keep it the same if you're beginning. And keep it the same if you're, I don't know about you, Pete, but you know, you've got guys who they want this adjustment and that. That's fine. But what about the next person getting in the boat? So yeah, if your coach is good enough and if your rigging ability is good enough, you can change the rigging for the sea conditions. For example, you can shorten the oars, or if you're doing a beach sprint, you'll have to have shorter oars and more power. And if you're doing the endurance 6K, you're going to have possibly longer oars, and you're possibly going to look at giving yourself a little bit of relaxation on the inboard. Would you agree, Pete?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
you're going to make it easier. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't really know what the span should be for the beach sprints, do we? And the rig, because it's such a short race. I mean, are you gonna keep changing it all the time? You've only got 7 minutes to change it round, so are you going to do anything? Probably not. You know,
keep it simple, but you might throw in a clam. You know, you're not going to change. Yeah. You know, you're not going to change much, but you know,
yeah.
How
I
about,
mean, as you say with the guys, you're going to self rig, aren't you? Essentially, you know, moving your hands up and down the grip.
Yeah,
like the Donovan guys.
Yeah.
So with the beach sprints, you're going to self rig, come back in on the wind and tide or whatever, wind and wave.
Yeah,
you're just going to move your hands down the lead. No, I totally agree. Keep it simple, know your figures, and then go from there.
Yeah, I guess you know, everyone will kind of stick to the kind of, you know, measurements that are out there, and then they can adjust it accordingly. You know, it really have to try it out a wee bit. Span, you know, and you know, assuming a span of 160 centimeters, and this could be related to the Swift boats. What is the largest inboard attainable or recommended on a span of 160?
Going back to Joe's overlap.
Yeah.
You know,
you can't
plus 8 centimeters, so 88.
Yeah.
You know, would be ideal. You can go to, I know people who wrote 90, but I can do that with the belly in the way.
Yeah.
Whose belly? Who have you got sitting on your lap? Pete, we talked about this. Don't talk yourself down anymore, okay?
So, I mean, you could probably row on 90 centimeters, couldn't you?
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
But, yeah.
Don't forget, like, para rowers row it crazy. They don't have an overlap. They row it here, you know, and they get used to it. They're technically, they don't have a lean back, so that they basically don't have to overlap. So they finish here, or they can finish out there. And technically, you could have very small inboard.
Would their oars be a lot shorter? I know. I watched the sprints, the world sprints, the indoor sprints, and some of the scores these guys, their upper body strength is just amazing. You know, so I don't know if they use that strength with a full oar or they bring it down a bit. You know, but they're incredibly strong upper body.
Yeah.
You know,
they're inboard of 72, 75. I cut an oar last week. Length of oar is about anywhere from 250 to 260.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they, as you say, they're mean. Like there's Katie O'Brien is rowing PR2 class, and she's knocking out a serious 2K at the moment, and that's arms and shoulders, I think, trunk and body. PR2 is basically where you don't use your legs. And there's people I know who'd struggle to get the 2K she's got with the full body, you know, so they're incredibly strong.
Yeah. Okay. There's a question here. It's quite specific. I'll read it through. Might have to repeat it, but I'll read it through. What would you recommend for a junior or a quad of junior novices when rigging with all slightly different settings already in a single? So it appears that they're coming from different settings in a single. The aim is to get them all to the catch and finishing at the same time. Are they all pitched and loaded the same way? So this is junior novices coming in from singles into a quad environment. No one wants to answer.
I was told not to talk too much.
So it depends. Why are they all on different settings? Is it
Yeah,
because one's 6'4" and one's 5'8" or something? I mean, that's the question you've got to start asking, you know, and then you've got to work out their own geometry about their bodies. If that's why you're going to rig them differently. But you know, you might, if they're shorter, you might move their span in 0.5 centimeter. If they're taller, you might move their span out, and then you're still in the same range. I don't think you need to be really specific on each row, especially if they're novices. As Joe said, keep it really simple. Try and get them to row the same range, unless they are geometrically different people. Any thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, I think the key thing here is the novices, and I think the other thing is that when you put them into a quad, if you're, it's kind of a loaded question. I mean, you right. What I do is I get the 4 of them and I do a dot check, you know, where I'd actually rig them without going into numbers. I'd rig them all so that they're all angles are the same, so that the finish position, you know where they are, you know where the catch position, they're all at the same. And then I get them all to tighten everything. So maybe start at the start, loosen everything, and in a very calm water conditions where you can look down or around them, set them up so that they're at the catch, set them up so they're mid-stroke, set them up so that they're at the finish, so that all 4 are, you know, catching and finishing at the same point. And then you tighten everything, and you might find from that then that their foot stretchers are in different positions that accommodates their height. Their back, you know, how they sit up at the backstops will be accommodated for. And then I'd record the numbers. But the other thing is the single is very different to the quad. How you behave in a single, you have much more work through, you have much more length. Maybe you're after, again, a single with beach sprints versus a single for endurance. So I disregard the single thing and work on the quad. And then if you've got me in stroke and then Pete decides to stroke it for some reason, Pete's going to be different to me. So you're going to have to keep it simple so you can change your crew around. And then when you find out your crew, you go, yeah, short arse up in the bow there, basically. Yeah, can't put him into 3 there because Pete's in 3. But next spin, I'm going to take those positions, you know? So just keep it simple.
Yeah, I think
disregard the singles thing, but be aware of it.
Yeah.
I think that's good advice. Joe, have you anything to add, Pete?
That's excellent, Joe. Well done.
Yeah, excellent.
I think that the as Joe said, the amount of time that you spend in the water in a single is going to be nearer a second, whereas in a quad it could be 0.5 second.
Yeah.
You know, so it's completely different, as Joe was saying.
Yeah,
the quad moves faster, so you need to be, you know, you need to be out of the water, in the water, out of the water, in the water. What were you saying, a second versus 0.5 second? Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, that's why you can hump it along in a single and miss loads and still go fast.
Yeah,
quad, you need to be accurate and quick every time.
You've obviously seen me rowing a single, Pete.
Humping it along.
Yeah. Not accurate. No, what did you say? I was going quicker anyway. Well, that's good. I'll take that. Well, here let's move swiftly on from that, eh? So when rigging a Swift or this Swift, does it make any difference if it's quad, double, or single? And I know we've covered a wee bit of this, but it's a question that came in. So maybe just pick up a couple of things. So basically, the different boats, different rigging.
Well, in terms of the coastal boats, they're all the same C cup, so it's all the same. The only thing that would be obviously different is the width of the boat, and therefore measuring the span is going to be very different. You know, as we went into it earlier, you measure to get exactly 80 centimeters each side. You have to measure to the center of the boat. So you generally measure the whole width of the boat, and then stick in. Put the tape measure on the edge of it. So if it's the quad's 130 centimeters wide at its widest points, if that's so, therefore it's 65 centimeters to the center of the boat. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
you have to work out your 160 from there. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, your gates aren't lopsided in any way, just to make sure that they're nice and symmetrical the whole way. And Joe is producing.
Buy one of these yokes. Use one of those, please.
Yeah, they're not wide enough for the quad though.
For the coastal quad, no.
But for the normal boats, that's a superb tool. That.
I thought I was going to put you down nicely there.
So what's that tool, Joe?
Active Tools self-centering span gauge.
Yeah.
I got that in Henley years ago, and I was coming through security in Heathrow, and I realized at the gate that it's quite beefy, you know. I don't know how I got it through, but I just smiled and told him a joke. No, I agree with you, Pete. It's very important to learn how to measure span, right? And I think the thing is that people, when they're measuring it, sometimes forget that you can have a span that's 160, but it's off center. So start with the basics again and make sure that you're centering it, and look at the boat. The individual boats are slightly different. The gunnels are different on the coastal versus the river boats. So there's little indicators, isn't there a work through line or the work line on some of the boats?
There should be, yeah.
Yeah, and you can use that. It's a little guide on the gunnel on the edge of the boat. There's a little white line, and you can use that if you hook your tape measure and then measure out to the top of the pin, and that will tell you that pin is 130 centimeters from this to the other side. Oh, that's 130.5, which is within working range. You know, I mean, if it's a centimeter off, change it.
Not for me, Joe. It's got to be bang on.
I know you're different. We've talked about this, Pete.
Millimeters count, Joe.
Actually, I'm 100. Well, this is meant to be a family broadcast.
You know that.
This is a family broadcast, okay? And certainly, it has to be bang on for the drift technique, you know.
What I would say, actually, personally, I found this in the past, and it's my own advice to myself, is if I get a half centimeter difference, remeasure, because oftentimes you go back and go, right, you know, what is it? Measure twice, cut once. So
yeah, definitely. Okay, I think we touched on it earlier, but there's been a couple of questions about the difference between, you know, the rigging difference between, you know, the sprint, the beach sprint, and the endurance. So maybe we could just touch on that again. You know, oar length probably is a big thing. You talked about self-checking, maybe different hand positions coming in with the wind or something. I don't know how many people would do that, but certainly, what can we discuss about the maybe differences between the endurance and the sprints then? Even, you know, is there differences in the boats, you know, really fin positions, you know, are the boats different as well?
They're not different yet, but we're working on that.
Hovercraft landing swift. It's like
in terms of
the Marines coming in.
Gwyn, who's in charge of the beach sprints for FISA, she wants the span to be on 158. So every boat is on 158 span. That obviously reduces the amount of overlap you can have, or whatever. That increases the overlap you'd have if you were to row on a normal blade. So if we are to continue on 158, then we're going to have shorter blades. In reality, I think, especially to smash over the waves, if they are big waves, you know.
Yeah, so there's a big difference between the endurance and the beach sprints, really, in that at the world level or certainly national level, whatever, you've got more or less a fixed rig, and it'll be like a uniform rig. So regardless of what you would like to set your scull up at, you might have to use what the standard fixed rig is, you know.
Yeah. And then you can only play around with blades. So that's where we're going to have to come in and be a bit cleverer with it.
Yeah. And heights, are you allowed to touch the heights, you know?
Yeah. I think you can pull out your heights. Yeah.
You'd have to, if you have a big boy and you have a small girl or whatever, like the position of the hands.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and also going into that, obviously, if it is a mixed double, let's say, then they're going to be on very different rigs themselves, aren't they? And if there has to be a 158, then they're going to have to rig it with the blades, and moving them around. Oh, it's going to be quite fun, isn't it? Working out what's the best rig for them.
Talking of blades, is the chopper the best blade? Is there any thoughts on the spoon shape, size?
My thoughts would be that whatever works for you.
Yeah.
Right. If you have an old wooden oar that works for you, I've loads of anecdotes, but fundamentally, I've seen people who have oars that are 10 centimeters different in length, and they've rowed fine because they didn't know it. You adjust, as Pete says, you self rig as you row. You change what you're doing. The chopper, I think, you hear a lot of people say the beard of the chopper clips it and all that. I don't know, really does it? But if it works for you, if you want to try a Macon, which is the tulip shape, and it works for you, that's fine. But there's a reason that 100% -1. So last year there was a girl who won this is flat water rowing, and she won in a Swift conveniently for us, but she was using Braca oars at the under-23 Worlds. She came second or third, Swiss girl.
Yeah.
But she would have won using her hands. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter about the shape. The reason the blades are shaped the way they're shaped, and the reason everyone's using the blades, is because they're better. I don't think there's a kind of a madness out there where people follow the fashion, but they do follow the fashion. But I think the best people will use the best materials. Wouldn't you agree, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, I'm yet to see any proof that the blades are actually faster in the different shapes. So going from a Macon to a s1e1, whatever, there was no proof, yeah, I've not seen any proof that they're actually
There's
better.
Fashion, but
Yeah.
then do you want to be the one that bucks the trend and comes fourth, or whatever?
No.
So that's
No,
the thing. You kind of go, well, the experts say so.
Yeah.
But the one thing I'd say on an advisory point is, if you're a club that has old Macon sculling blades, right, keep them, because when you've novices, you mentioned novices, right? What I find is, if you look at, I repair a lot of oars, and what you see is a lot of blades, and you have delamination going on, and these are old blades, but you often see a big chunk. It's the size. It's a good 335. It's a triangle taken out of the blade, and what it is beginners 2 or 3 moves forward, and bow sits there, and they interlock with the choppers. So for beginners, it's probably better to use Macons, because A, there's a better feel on the water. They are a little slippier, and B, you don't damage your oars as much. So it's just, don't throw out your old Macons given to the novices for 2 good reasons.
Yeah, and as you say, they're lighter for the,
You mean in the water, they're lighter?
Yeah. So if you muck up a stroke, or if you take the whole weight of the boat on it, then it's not going to destroy a novice's back instantly.
Yeah.
So Pete, using the drift technique, could I use those nice oars that are perched on your wall behind you? Could I maybe borrow those?
These are from your day, I think, 1850 something.
Yeah, that'd be about right.
One piece.
They're Shackleton's oars, weren't they? He rowed from.
I've got the boat used as well.
Oh yeah,
very good.
That's so much better than the one I'm using.
That's your boat, Pete. Yeah.
That's my diamond-winning boat now.
Very good.
Sticking on the subject of oars, then we've talked about the shape of the spout. What about the shaft, the stiffness, the loom, whatever you want to call it? You'll know the technical name. Are we maybe advocating a less stiff blade? For the coastal boats, is there any difference that way?
Well, yeah, we're finding that we're using less and less carbon in the coastal blade at the moment, and so we're down to 65%, which is massive. You would normally run 95%, wouldn't you, Joe?
100%.
100%. Okay. You would, yeah.
Quality, Joe.
I use 110% carbon in mine, actually. I put a little extra on before I go for
Yeah.
So yeah, we're down to 65%, and then people are still complaining it's too stiff. So we're taking another 10% off that, so 59%.
Okay.
People are going from river rowing to coastal rowing, and they're taking their medium flex, which is the stiffest skinny, for example, and then they're going, and that's like the deflection is something like 4.5 centimeters over 3 meters for 15 kilos. I can get I can do millimeters if you want, Pete. Family show. But here's the thing: if you have the oar is a spring, and people forget that, so less carbon means more spring, but it also means more endurance. More carbon means it breaks quicker, whereas the epoxy, the technically kind of the less space age stuff is actually more resilient. So, but it has a nicer spring to it, and it's less forgiving, or it's more forgiving on the back as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, yeah, it's more durable when you get in fights around the first buoy. You don't want someone chopping your blade off.
Charging at each other.
Yeah. Always carry a spare blade with you. It'd be a good one.
People ask me all the time, like, which blade should you use? And I'm like, what are you using it for? And they want to use it for, the club wants to use it for rec rowing, for novices, for beginners, all the way through to their junior championship winners on both the river and on the coast. You're asking a lot of a blade to cover all that. They do exist, but when you find people then buying the top end oar and spending €800 on a pair of oars, and they say, well, why can't I use this when you're rowing on the river, or sorry, on the coast? You can use it, sure. It's just not as good as using the springier blade, the shorter blade. Your blade, your €800 blade will be snapped in half like that in a beach sprint that goes wrong.
Yeah.
Where and that's the way it is,
Okay. There's one more question, but I think we've covered it. It's quite an expansive question, and maybe we can touch on it later. But someone was asking about spread or length inboard for all the different boats. But I guess we've kind of touched on that anyway. There are rigging charts out there. I presume Swift have something on their website, do they, in terms of kind of standard dimensions?
Yeah, later.
Yeah.
Give me a minute.
Oh, well, you're going to get some traffic now, so you're going to have to come up with the goods, guys.
Yeah. I think there's loads of things out there, but they do throw. I think Pete and I are being a bit reluctant to give figures specifically because you have to experiment. But the guidelines there, for example, on the coastal rowing, for example, world rowing have guidelines there that would differ maybe in terms of what Pete's finding with the international crews. Like they say 159, whereas you're seeing 162. And that varies. It's individuals.
And Pete, just touching on the different span. Do the Swift boats come pre-rigged, just ready to hit the water, or do you have to just go over them and double check a few things? Is it really, ready to go?
I would always check, just in case. But the span should be on 160, and the gate should be on 0, basically.
Okay.
But I would check it and then and go from there.
Yeah, but the intention is to set them out as the 160 zero pitch. So in all likelihood, it might have shifted in transport, but you just want to double check these things. But at least you know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
Just to be sure, there's a 1 degree occasionally gets thrown in for beginners, don't there?
Yeah.
1 degree lateral, just to give it moves out a little, and it gives people a little bit of extra freedom at the finish.
And Okay, guys, that is all the questions that we have received, and they're all very good. It raised a lot of questions, a lot of discussion there. I hope everyone enjoyed looking at and can learn from some of the information you've heard today. We're more than welcome to, if you want to submit any more questions, we're more than happy look into doing another vodcast at some stage, but this is the first one. Hopefully it's enjoyable. Any parting words from the guys? Joe, Pete, any parting words of wisdom?
Keep it simple. And ask the questions. I found people are reluctant to ask because they don't want to expose themselves for not knowing something. Here's the deal. 99% of people don't know what you're asking the question about. And you have to kind of discuss. And, and there's things that I love when people say to me, where would you put the heel height or whatever? I'm like, I'll check. I might know, but I'll check, and it prompts it. So ask the questions. Keep it simple, ask the questions and write things down.
Yeah. Pete, any parting words of wisdom?
No, 100% with Joe there. Keep it simple. Do you not want to have a little plug on the what's smoking in Boomer's oven?
Smoking in Boomer's oven. Well, because of this podcast, there's nothing smoking in Boomer's oven. My time has been diverted. Who knows?
I'm sorry. Oh,
we'll get it fired up later. Well, listen, I think on that bombshell, we can just end this all. And thank you all very much for listening and tuning in, and see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.
Well, I better go and light the smoker then.
Yeah. Do you ever do mackerel or anything like that?
Oh yeah. Mackerel, eels, salmon. I smoke
eels.
Eels, yeah.
That's really bosh. A jellied eel. Tell me, how do you slice your bacon?
With the bacon slicer.
How thick do you slice?
3 mil.
Really? Would you not go thick? Gammon, no?
No. It's too thin's no good. 4 is too thick. 3, I've worked out 3 is good. So it's perfect. You'll eat it the way you get it.
We can actually, get serious for 5 seconds and give him the technical. Let's go bosh. My wife says, what's gonna come out of his mouth next? Henry Kelly, going for gold.